Okay, so to kick off the vendor management section, we're going to start off with discussing the most important app you will have when dealing with Chinese suppliers and vendors, which is Wechat. So the purpose of this video is really just to review the critical communication and vendor management app Wechat, how we use it, how you can use it, and just break that down because it is kind of like Slack and or Google Suite in terms of how important it is to managing the operations of your business. So Wechat really is the digital hub of China. I don't think that everyone fully realizes or understands kind of the power of this app, but it really is the hub of the lives, both business and professional, of folks in China. It's used for messaging, so you can look at it like text messaging or Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp. It's kind of all those three things combined. It's social media, and so all of your like equivalent of Facebook posts or Instagram posts can also exist there. It's banking now, so most people don't even have credit cards or any like physical cards. It's all done via QR codes, and one of the hubs of that is the Wechat app. And it really is the intersection of business and personal. So while folks may have multiple accounts, one for business, one for personal, typically this is really the hub of their lives. So if you were to combine every app that matters in US or Western society, from banking to social media to communications, it is basically all of those things wrapped into one. And it really is a phenomenal app and a really cornerstone piece of being able to effectively run your factories in China and manage your vendor relationships. So basically how we use Wechat, there's a number of different methods. The first of which is basically product development. So you might start off on a site like Alibaba or some other kind of sourcing platform or email. We ultimately, if we feel like they're a pretty legitimate factory with kind of a good offering, we want to move it to Wechat as soon as possible. It's just much more efficient. You know, Alibaba's messaging service is kind of clunky. If you're using email, there's time delays. Wechat is way more real time, which is super important to speed up the product development cycle, get photos back and forth, get feedback back and forth. So the sooner you can get away from other apps and or email, the better when you're developing products. The next is order management. This is probably one of the key day-to-day pieces. We're pretty much in there every day and week doing this, but you're coordinating dates of production, inspections, when's pickup going to be ready. Is there any like feedback they need on production? Is there a new box? What UPC code are you putting on? All those nuances that go into actually creating a product and the logistics behind it are coordinated via order management on the Wechat app. The next is factory management. So there's obviously oftentimes macro things happening both at the factory level and then at the country or region level. So if there's macro or strategic changes happening, we're usually going to communicate and find out about these first via the Wechat app. So your account manager or a factory boss, if you've got them on there, is going to keep you up to speed on things that are happening both with their factory and with China in general. So if there's shipping delays, if there's currency changes, if there's commodity price changes, if there's issues in the supply chain at the macro level, you'll typically hear about that and engage on those topics via the Wechat app. A big one is negotiations. So, email obviously is not the best. It's very static. It's not kind of communicative in the same way that a real-time messaging app is. So anytime we're negotiating pricing, we're trying to work through issues, we're trying to get stuff done faster, we're trying to fix, something that happened, we're typically going to engage in the Wechat app. Leading into the next one, we can also do calls via Wechat, both video and or audio calls. So sometimes it makes sense for issues that you need to have a conversation about, kind of add that formality to it. Calls are a great way to do that. Oftentimes, if you want to review a product real time and kind of want to have real time feedback, or you want to actually see something happening at the factory, you can actually get your account manager on a Wechat video call, and then they can kind of pop up their video, much like a FaceTime call, and kind of show visuals, which can be helpful. And then finally, and this is one that I don't really hear anybody talking about, but I think for me, one of the biggest benefits, especially as I've kind of stepped out of the day-to-day logistics and vendor management stuff, is just the relationship management. So I kind of mentioned that on the slide before that Wechat is also like a social hub for folks. So I tend to actually post photos. I'm usually doing a kind of a post about my life at least once a week in Wechat. So if I'm going to go do a Facebook post or an Instagram post, oftentimes I'll just take that extra 2 minutes and post it on Wechat. And I find by sharing my life, sharing photos of my adventures and things like that, and giving people a glimpse into my life that I'm connected to on Wechat, it goes a long way in terms of connecting with them at a personal level. On the flip side of that, you can also kind of have non-business conversation, and I certainly encourage that with folks at your factories, right? If they're getting married, there's all kinds of marriages that happen. If they've got photos of their kids, comment on their photos. Get to know them as human beings, and WeChat is a really good extension, especially in these times where it's difficult to visit China, or if you're only going to be there once a year, to really connect at a human level with your factories. It can go really a long way when you need help, when you need a favor, when you need to negotiate. Those little contributions and kind of building the relationship, albeit digitally via the WeChat app, can go a long way. And then the final way I use WeChat, and we'll talk about this by just showing a video.
Ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3, go.
So that is me at a at a dinner with a couple of factories on my last China trip. Suffice it to say, we got into the beer pretty good, which tends to happen when I go to China. We have a lot of fun. But how I use WeChat is money too. It's funny. After this night, I was really hungover. I had to go to this was in I think this was in Ningbo. I had to go to Ningbo to catch a train to Shanghai. And you literally can't use credit cards in most places when you're visiting China. As I'd mentioned, WeChat is really a digital currency app that you can use via QR codes to pay for stuff. A lot of places you go now in China, and this has changed even over the last year or two, you can't use physical money and you can't use credit cards. So I typically also try to get some money loaded onto my WeChat before I go to a trip to China, just so I've got some odd kind of money to pay for things when I'm out. Either at train stations or places like that. So fun little interlude there. If you're hungover and really need a water the next day, I wasn't able to buy water at the train station, and I was super hungover because I didn't have any money in my WeChat. So load some money under WeChat. You can usually get one of your vendors to do that for you. In terms of signing up, just download the app. There is some nuance to this. You can't just download it, create an account, and get off to the races. They have it set up where you actually need to get approved by somebody else on the app. This applies for both your employees. Let's say you want to kind of have some of your team interacting with vendors. When they download WeChat for the first time, you'll need to verify them and legitimize them. If this is the first time, I can't accept or approve anybody anymore because I think there's a limit on how many you can approve per year, and I've just approved so many people. So if you're downloading the app, I would just go into the Facebook group and do a post and see if somebody can help verify your WeChat account. Maybe you become close with somebody in the group and you're in their kind of Facebook DMs, kind of chatting back and forth, see if they can verify you. A key thing here, when you go to get verified, they're going to give you a QR code that somebody else with WeChat can scan to verify you. But you've got to do that within 2 minutes or so of getting that QR code. So if you need any help getting verified, just communicate in the group. Hopefully you can find somebody that can hook you up. And then just again, make sure that you guys are both online at the same time because you need to verify within a couple minutes of that QR code being generated. So that is WeChat. It's a fundamental part of doing business, especially with factories in China. And it can be really a cornerstone of the operations of a physical products business.